Hi there, I'm Tom from Foam Data Services, and we are bringing you a series of videos called How Fast Does It Fire? And our aim is to measure on the digital chronograph all the common blasters in the Elite line, totally stock. We will try to use the freshest box new blasters and the freshest box fresh darts that we can use so that there are less variables and there'll be less things wrong, to give you guys out there in the Nerf community a baseline of data with which to measure your mods. Now, most people in the NIC still use range tests as their bottom line, and this series was inspired by some work done by Turok Makto, who is on the Nerf Haven forum and is also on the Humans vs Zombies forum, mods that he does using a chronograph. Now, his chronograph tests are to prove that his mods actually make significant improvements to the blasters, and you will see quoted on some websites that this dart blaster will shoot X feet per second with this spring installed, or you will see an X amount of feet per second gain from this mod. So that's all fine and good, but what if you don't know what the blaster is meant to shoot stock? Now, there are rules and regulations governing projectile velocities for toys, so you can expect a ballpark figure, but we're out to look out for what is the fastest projectile that you can get from a stock Nerf gun, which Nerf gun actually shoots consistently the highest numbers of shots in the top of its range, and what is the worst performing member of the Elite line, so that you can, as buyers, can actually go and look at your performance and say, okay, I know this blaster consistently shoots really high scores on the chronograph and therefore will give you better range. Now you're going to say, oh, why aren't you doing range tests? Okay, range tests, unfortunately their time has passed. I'm sorry to inform you, but the range test is dead. It's a good fun way of just seeing how far you can get a dart to go, but as a practical and scientific method of exploring performance, it's a goner. Now, I come from an automotive tuning background. In the automotive tuning industry, nobody uses guesstimated figures. Nobody says, oh well, I went out on the motorway or I went out on the freeway and I got 150 as my top speed. That means that my new modified intake system must work better than my stock one, because in my stock one I can only get around 140. Just not true. For true performance you have to measure things, and for ballistics the easiest and truest measure of performance is velocity, and this is what is measured on the chrono. The chronograph readings will be in feet per second. These can be converted into miles an hour, and the idea is that as we shoot we'll put in our description boxes a link to our spreadsheet data. Every blaster will do 50 shots over the chrono, and I will give you the average statistics, the high, the low, and the standard deviation. And standard deviation, if you want an explanation of that, there's a link in the description box, and it's a statistical term. Now, this is not a completely perfect statistical test. If you want bigger tests and you want more in-depth testing, then we actually run a pay-per-use system. If you're a commercial client and you want to test mods that you're going to sell, then we can offer those services so that you can have yourselves a nice set of data with which to prove to your customers that your mods actually work. We can do samples of any size shots, from just one clip right the way up to a couple of hundred shots, if you can provide us with enough new darts. Now, the reason we're using new darts is because then there's no variation in the data. For these tests I will endeavour to use the newest darts I can. Sometimes those darts will do 2 tests of 50 shots, but that's the maximum, and these are just a ballpark figure. So I'm not giving you guys the best data that you can get, and I'm not claiming to produce the best data you can get. I'm claiming to produce a good, usable starting point for modders and for people who are just interested in how fast and what kind of ballistic performance they can expect from their Nerf blasters. Now, this test is going to be conducted outside by and large, unless it's raining. Now, the chronograph likes a bit of cloud. We're lucky in the UK that cloud is our friend. We see it often. And I'm using a space that's enclosed on 3 sides by buildings, so there's very little wind and there's not a lot of movement, air movement down here. And so we shouldn't see too much alterations. Now, the setup is extremely simple. You can see I have a chronograph and then I have a backstop box just to catch the darts, because otherwise you can't collect them all and they get dirty. So we're using a very basic setup to do these tests. For commercial clients we offer a full video service. I've got a nicer location I can use that looks a bit prettier if you want to display our stuff on websites, and you can pretty much pick, choose and customize your video. So thank you for watching the introduction, and we're going to start our tests. And if you enjoy the series, then please, subscribe, leave comments, and we're happy to do any blaster you think we should do. And if you want to get your own blasters done, then there'll be links on how to find our services and what those services cost in the description box below.